All right, the database guy again. Welcome back. Please, again, like and subscribe as always. I hope you can stay with me. There's going to be countless numbers of these videos to help you out with just about anything you can think about. Um, Here in video, presentation to video number one, and I'm doing it this way because I may have multiple videos and a presentation. My first one was presentation one, video one. Now we're in presentation two, video two, and we're going to be in naming conventions. And before I get into it, again, you have tables, queries, forms, reports, modules, controls, and demo. Um, I can do the demo after, and you can see why it's so important, and you'll see what it is. But we're going to go through the naming conventions for all of these. Okay, all A to F. The demo is obviously a demo of it. For tables, you're going to have TBL name, so example table books. It tells you it's a table. It tells you what it is. You might think, well, what's the point? It's going to be in my table objects anyway. There's an important reason why. It has to do with Visual Basic coding. Field for most is field name, FLD name, or whatever that is. Maybe it's field books, field author, field publisher. And then when you have a foreign key, I like to have FK underscore and the name of the field, or you can use just FK and the name of the field. So I could have FK underscore publisher or pub or FK pub. Okay, it's up to you. This tells you when you look at a database, it tells you what you're looking at, so you can digest it and understand it. If you name things randomly, you're not going to know whether it's a table, a field, or what it is. You're going to have to really be very adept at this. So this is to make your life easier, and it's also the prime backbone of helping you with um, Visual Basic coding. Okay, queries, it's interesting. A basic SQL query is just query and name. And this is a basic type of query to query for information to locate it. And you could have one or more tables in that query. You'll see an example when we get to queries. Excuse me. But that is your majority of probably your queries. And they're used for being the source of a form or a report, or just in general, being able to give you data in a search or something of that nature. The append query does what it says. It appends data to a table. Essentially, what you're doing there is you're taking the data that's captured within that query, you're copying it and pasting it to the end of a table. If I have no data, it'll just put it in a table. But if I have 1,000 records, I'll start at 1001 and append the rest of the data there. Now, warning. A warning on an append query, whenever you're running these. Depending upon how you structure your table, okay, if you do not permit duplication, it will not append certain types of data. We're going to get into how the tables are set up in the next video. But you could essentially append data twice. So you've got to be careful. You either have to run code to prevent it from happening, or you have to set up your tables to prevent it from happening. I'll give you an example with a client I have who imports data from a CSV, which is uh, a comma. It's a text table in Excel, comma separated values. Thank you. I'm trying to think what in my head there, but and so she's taking this data and she needs to then import it and append it into a table. To prevent it from doing it twice, what I set up was I look at the name of the file, which is part of the process, and I compare it with names of files already imported. If I match it, it won't append it. So there are ways to work this out. So if you're going to run an append query, generally what you're going to do is you're going to have a reason for doing it, right? You're going to have a function or a methodology that is consistent with it, the need for it, what we call um, uh, a user requirement or a business requirement to do it, and that kind of thing right there is something you're going to have to monitor. So, but an append query would be query app and then whatever the name or some sort of name after it. All right. Number three is a delete query. We don't normally delete data. We do not like to delete data at all. It's a big no-no. Once we wipe it out, we can't get it back. But there's some use for a delete query, and I'll explain what that is right now. In some cases, we will use temporary tables where it'll be a scratch table, and I love using them because what that does, okay, if a person is working within the database and they want to add data to a table or they want to add records, I will open up the temp table, allow those records to be created there, all right, and then have them appended to the main table. Okay, again, you have a function. And also, as I said before, in the append process, if the record exists already, um, I'll have it warn the end user it already exists or something of that nature. But the temp table itself, right? So the user populates the temp table. Well, first it's going to clear it out with the delete query. User will populate it, append the data, and then it will clear it out again with the delete query. So you'll delete everything to start to make a fresh temp table. You'll work in it, append whatever you want, or if you don't want to append it, you just want to cancel it, it will delete everything. If you do append what you want to append, it will then append everything, and then you'll delete it again. So a delete query is good for temp tables, for working in tables where you want to clean things up. Apart from that, we never delete data in a database. It's just a big no-no, all right, to exist on that one. That'd be query DEL in the name. That's the only time I use a delete query, and the reason being is because it's very useful. You're going to find temp tables are nice too because when you go to append data in the way I'm talking about, you're queuing people, you're putting people in a queue. There's an issue with access that can happen where if one user is in the table and is adding data, it is possible to lock a record. Usually it's in the next phase, number 4, updating or editing, not necessarily in adding data, but still, the process which I describe is much more useful for allowing end users to move their data in packets to the backend, to the tables. So 4 is the update query, which really is you're updating or making editorials. It's query, UPD, and name. So here, in this case here again, I would open up a temp table. I would delete everything out, open it up. The user would go in, select the things they want to edit, make the changes. They'll be in the temp table. Once they're happy, they would update by looking at an ID number and matching the ID number in the main table. Whatever changes are made, they will update those changes. The update is incredibly useful. And it is far better, as I said, than allowing users to edit directly in tables because you can lock records. And locking records is a nasty, nasty thing. All right. Make table, not used too much, but if you're going to import data from another format and you want to create a table, basically what it does is it makes an access database table out of the data, the query, MK, and name. The next three are very specific. We're going to see them. They're called union, which is a union of two tables. It can be useful. I've used it before, but it also can be not so useful. You got to be careful with it, but query name and then UN. The pass-through is beautiful, and I've used this one exclusively, and the reason you use a pass-through is if you're dealing with SQL Express or SQL Server, the only reason why. What it does is it runs the query in SQL code, not Access SQL code, in SQL Server SQL code, and directly queries SQL Server or SQL Express as a backend. For the information, it's faster. So query name PT, you'll see that shortly too, at some point too. Not shortly, but at some point too. And the last one is a cross-tab query. This one's known as a pivot table. You have a row, a column, and values, or value. You can have many rows. You can have one column. I think it's only one column, and I think it's only one value, if memory serves. Okay. So that's the naming convention there. Forms, it's easy, FRM name. Subform, SFRM name. Now, what's a subform? Wait a minute. Wait, what are you talking about, Mr. Database Man? Well, you have a form, and if I put a little form inside a form, it's a subform. And I can, and here's the thing, and I've done it. I've had a form with 5 subforms in it, let's say. And you can do that. That's fine, because you're relating the main form to each one of those subforms. And you're populating data, and it's fine. It works well. What you don't want to do is to put a subform into a subform. It really won't work. Okay, this becomes going to infinity, or negative infinity, if you want to call it that. You're not going to be able to query data. You might do it to some degree with a subform and a subform, but I don't think it's going to be usable for a good interface. All right, so keep it to a form with a number of subforms. I wouldn't go more than 5. You got to be careful because of real estate. So, but having a subform within a subform, while it can be done to some degree, it's not recommended. Okay. Reports, same thing, RPT name, subreport, SRPT name. Same thing there. I've done 5 subreports within a report. It works fine, but don't do a subreport within a subreport. Not going to like it. Your modules, your Visual Basic coding module, you can do one of 2 options. I prefer BAS name, or you can do MOD name. It's up to you. So if I had BAS connections, my connections code, that's what I would do. All right. Class module, CLS, and then name. Don't worry about that. That one's a little more involved. And the controls. Boy, the controls. Text box. Um, so text box is TXT name, combo CBO name, label LBL name, checkbox CK name, button CMD name, command button, or BTN name. Up to you. Excuse me. Navigation control, NAV name, as well as um, the page on a navigation control. You could have NAV and the page name. Option group is OPT name, which is an option. We'll get to that. Toggle button, TOG name. List box, I like LST and name. So if it's a list box for users, LST and then users. Rectangle is just box name, BX name. Subform, we already said SFRM name. Image, you can put an image in, IMG name. Option button, OBTN name, which is different from an option group. And an attachment name. We'll keep these in mind. So I'm going to show you a quick demo. So in the demo, I want to show you why this is important. I'm going to go into Access, create a new database. Close presentation to 1. We'll make a blank database, I'm sorry. And do it this way. Yeah, okay. P2. Darn it, sorry, V1. All right, so I'm going to create a table here, but let me close this down for a minute. Create, now there's ways to do it, okay? If I go to create table, I get what you just saw. And in this interface, I'm going to just create here, click into here and field book ID, we'll call it. Okay. And here we're going to call this one, we're going to add a short text and field title. All right. And then we're going to add number, field year, and we're going to do one more. Field publisher. All right, so I'm going to call this Moby Dick. And year, I'm going to say 18, I don't care, 95. I don't know when it was published. Publisher, uh, hmm, hope they don't get mad. Okay, so I put a record in here, all right? I put a record in here. Yes, I want to save the design and TBL books. All right, so as an example. Now, here's the thing. You see I put these in here, right? Okay, field, table, I did all the naming conventions I was supposed to. Now, watch what happens here. I'm going to create a form using the form wizard. I'm going to take all the fields. You go next, I'm going to let it be columnar, or columns basically, or tables. You can do tabular, you can do a data sheet, or rectified. It really doesn't matter. We'll just leave it as this. By the way, data sheet's what you would find in a table. The other ones are columns and so on. And here, notice it named it table books. We're going to name this form books and finish it. It's going to open it up. Now, I want you to see something, and this is why I'm doing this demo. All right, I'm going to go to the field for the book ID. This is the field. We have a label for it. We have a field for it. Let me just close this here for a minute. Go to right click, properties. And so you see here, the caption is field BID. You notice it gave me this field BID label as a default. Okay, gave it to me. That's for the label control. For the text control, notice the name of the control is identical to its source. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. Whoever set up this wizard, all right, didn't think this one out too well, in my opinion, because what you want to do, you can double click as well, and it'll open it up as well, or should. Let's see. Oh, right click in properties. I thought it double clicked it, but here, you want to call this txt. Because what's going to happen is if you don't, if it's the same name and you're trying to refer to it for some reason in code, you're going to get a circular reference. It's nasty. All right. A lot of people like to use the wizard because it's easy. All right. It's easy. All right. Now I'm just going to do the 3. I'm not going to do the publisher here for a minute. And I'm going to save it. All right. And close it. Now, I'm going to go into Visual Basic. You're going to see this the first time we're going to see it. And the objects are here. Let's see, that's modules. I'm sorry. The objects are here. Hang on a minute. Those are class objects. I'm sorry. Actually, I can't do it from here. I need to go into the form. Basically, the code or the module for the code isn't there. I'm going to go to properties for a minute here. Actually, let me do it on form instead, the general properties on form. And I'm going to do it on unload. I'm going to go to unload. I'm going to show you how to use this when you get to it. So you basically go to the event, click the ellipsis, go to code builder. All right, now you see here an object and you see the form books, right? So the me item is an immediate, when you do me and the dot, you immediately get the IntelliSense. I'm going to watch what happens. All right. Well, I'm going to type in FL, and you see field book ID, field pub, field title, field year. You see all this stuff here, right? Now, if I go to text, you'll see the three I just created, which are unique. Those are my controls. This here are my field labels, not my controls. Now I'm going to have a problem here. Big problem here. Because am I referring to the control or the field? So let's see. And year label. So you see them, right? So these here, this is the name of the control for the labels, right? This is, okay, so I'm just going to, for a moment right now, I'm going to relabel them to show you what happens. I'm going to just save that, go over, and here, LBL, BID, LBL, TIT. I'm sorry, hang on a minute. Wrong part. There's LBL, TITLE. And we're going to do it for year. Let's see. LBLYEAR. Okay. We're going to save that by hitting our little save over here. Now we're going to go back to Visual Basic. And we should see the changes. So if I come in here using the immediate, which is really the immediate, and I hit field, the only thing that's left is right, pub label. It's the only one that's left. Pub here, now this here, year, title, and book ID are the fields, not the controls on the form. Pub label is the control on the form. All right? Is the control on the form. Pub, who knows? All right. Let's see. Equals test. Let's see what happens. If we're right, we're going to save this. We're going to get an error, or we should get an error. Well, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't do something here. Hang on a moment. Not value. Let's see if it'll work. It might not because it's going to populate data. So let's see. Might error out anyway. Yeah, it's giving me an invalid use of property because what's happening is I can't set a value to something that's there. So what I'm going to do is delete this entry. Yep. You say we never delete data, but hey. Yeah. So you see here it can't. So let's see what happens because it may be running a circular reference on that. So let's see. Me txt year equals um, let's see what happens with that. I'm thinking the circular reference is causing it, but let's see. And okay, so let's close it and open it. Yeah, put it right in there. All right. So now let's see what happens if I go back and test. See if it'll allow me to do it with a circular value. I don't even need value in here. I don't even need that. Usually you don't. Let's see. We're going to close this. Invalid use of property. So it's giving me a circular reference. In other words, right? So let me try with title. I'm sure it'll be fine to prove my point. And the reason being is because it's looking at the control, the field, and trying to set it. Let's see. There we go, test, right? So now let's see what happens if we take pub, and what we do here is we change this. Yes, we want to save it. Let's go back to Visual Basic, and let's make this one pub. All right. And there you see it. It's actually running it for both entries. I'm going to delete that. Yeah, get rid of it. So it's writing it for both entries. I'm going to close it and open it back up. And there you see it. Now we're fine. Just to also, I'm going to delete this entry too because I don't want to save it. Yeah. Um, just to show you properties, data, the record source for this, notice it's the full table, not a query. Just to let you know, this is sort of a limiting factor. You can do this. You can have a table as the record source of a form, no question. But what I can do is I can click the three ellipses. I'm going to do that one more time just to close out my demo here and say yes. And then I'm going to click each one of these and bring them in the bottom. I'm going to close this. You want to save it, yes. Now it's a select query, okay? Which we're going to save this. I'm going to just explain the differences on those, but you can see we're doing the same thing here. Yep. And So it's a select query. So what's the difference? Well, properties. A select query is actually essentially SQL code that's running as the query. It's cumbersome, it's bulky. You really don't want to do that. You can, but I don't recommend it. What you do is, over here, when you go into this query, you do a save as, and we're going to call this QRY books. All right. And the reason, yes, we want to save it, is because now look what it changed it to, query books. I'm going to open it again. Same thing, right? No difference. Only one piece of data will run quickly. However, yeah, we want to save that. You notice queries books now became an object. All right. We're seeing expression 011. So let me just take a look at this. So I have two titles in. Whatever you have a duplicate, you're going to have that expression. Let's save it. We only need one. We only need one entry for it, one field. So each field is down there below. I'm not going to get into anything further on this one. But you can see here, there's nothing in here. Okay. And I could here right, add. Now, I can add data to a query as well, but not all queries are updatable like this. This one happens to be, because it comes directly, yes, comes directly from, go to table books, we're going to see it here, and let's see what happens here. Yeah, it just changed this one here from MacHill to test, which is interesting, okay? And I can get rid of this too. So in our demo, what did we learn? We learned that the form wizard uses the same name of the field to make uses the same name that or uses the field name as the control name. You're going to get a circular reference. It's going to be horrible in Visual Basic. All right, very very horrible, and we don't want to do that. Um, so that's the reason why we name things. That's the reason why we do it. We want to make sure what we see, and as you saw, when I looked for something with TXT or text, I found it very rapidly and I knew it was a control. FLD, if I'd have gone the way the wizard went, I wouldn't know whether it's a control or a field, and it's confusing. And as you can see, it would not change the data in the control. So this is why naming is so important. As you get more and more information in your database, it is going to be huge. So I hope this reason for naming conventions has really driven it home for you. Always name things. And so that being the case now, so then my recommendation is don't use the wizard, or if you're going to use the wizard, you'd better change everything, all the control names. I don't see a need to use the wizard, and you're going to see me not use it. I'm going to create controls, bring them in there, set them up the way I want them, name them, and so on and so forth. So I know what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. All right. Our next presentation when we come back will be on general database design principles. You need to have that first before we get into tables. I hope this has been informative. Please like and subscribe as always. I am the database guy. Wherever you are, have a good day, evening, morning, whatever, or night. um, Take care and stay here with me. All right. Bye.